So we're talking to Matt from the band Wreck-Defy. Welcome to Friday the 13th, Matt. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
You're right, and I'm going to ask you some warm-up questions because this is the first interview, and I've just been like discovering some of your back catalogue albums. What at what age did you learn to play guitar, and who's your influences? Who's inspired you?
Uh, well, I I started playing around age 13. Back then, so that would have been around what, 88 or 88 or something like that. I'm 50 this year, so yeah, about 1988 or something. And back then it was guys like Angus Young, uh, uh, Ace Frehley. You know what I mean? And then shortly thereafter, I kind of found bands like Metallica. I was kind of a late bloomer to the thrash. I discovered my introduction to Metallica was the one or Injustice for All record. So, I had to go backwards to relearn that band's catalog. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, I was a kind of a late bloomer to the genre of thrash itself. But guitar influences were like, yeah, AC/DC and Kiss, and then once I discovered thrash, then forget about it. That was like a life path that I haven't deviated from or faltered from for the last 30 some years now. It's been all about the thrash. So, there was every guy in that pantheon of thrash, like everybody, man, like Bobby Gustafson, the original Overkill,
Yeah,
and
love Overkill, my
uh
favorite thrash band.
me too. They're absolutely my favorite thrash band. I think they've done no wrong throughout their entire career, so um, but back to the inspiration in that, yeah, all the Megadeth guitar players, yeah, all those bands, man. And then guys like Brad Hall from Forced Entry, who gets very little notoriety, but is
Great
one of the
band, they're a
best
great
guys that
band. Uncertain Future's a great album.
absolutely, man. And even the one after that, like As Above, So Below, the production was way better. The songs were, you know, questionably not as heavy or whatever. They're a little more progressive on that record, but the musical talent was just mind blowing to me. Those guys were like, they're like Rush on steroids.
What about
So yeah,
classic English guitarists like KK Downing, Glenn Tipton, Paul Quinn from Saxon, them sort of guys? Does any of those guys inspire you?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially the Priest guys. I was more a Tipton fan than a KK fan. When that painkiller stuff, man, like to me, that ripped my head off. That stuff, the guitar playing on that record was just amazing. And the production of Chris Sangarides on that record was just another level for those guys. I thought it was so sonic. Actually, I'll tell you. So you mentioned Anvil, Chris, you know, God
Christ.
rest his soul.
Uh,
He produced a couple Anvil records back in the day, and then he did their comeback record. This is 13. But I mean, he's worked with, he did Exodus, he did Force of Habit.
King Diamond
But I
did
gotta
King
say,
Diamond as well.
oh yeah, my opinion, the best record he's mixed was that Painkiller album. I
Right.
think it's sonically perfect. I think that's a brilliant album. So, and that has a lot to do with what he did with Glenn's guitar tone on that. It just rips your face off. Like that Painkiller solo, the first time I heard that, it was almost like listening to get the air raid sirens going, incoming. Yeah, fantastic stuff, man. Yeah.
So what
And
was
you
the
know
very
what? And we talked about the UK stuff, like bands like Onslaught, especially that Search of Sanity record at the time. To me, was an awesome thrash record. And then the Zentric guys, I always revered them as my favorite British band. Back in the day, anyway. Now you've got Evil, and there's so many other great bands that have popped up. But back then, Acid Rain and Slammer. Yeah, there was a lot of them out of that area that I really was partial to as well.
there's a band in my home
Of
city called Reanimator. Do you remember those guys from
course,
England?
of course, man. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
So Matt,
yeah.
so other than that, what was the very first band you was in that actually recorded anything that people can hear?
I would say that's the starting point would be Rectify, man. Like, I could never get enough of it. Like, I was obsessed with music as a kid. It was an escape, it was a release, it was all those things that a music nerd deems it to be. That's what it was for me. So the obvious next level was to learn how to write your own music one day. You know what I mean? Craft your own compositions, what have you. So I started doing that, yeah, at a young age. Well, you mentioned Fragments of Anger on your Friday the 13th review of the record.
Yeah,
By the way, thank you for that.
you're
Thank you
welcome.
for the kind words. Appreciate that. Um, like this, there's a song on that album. Are you familiar with the track listing? The first record?
On the first record, yeah, I've had a look at it, but I didn't know that Sean and Glenn Drover, two friends of mine that were on the album. It's kind of like, well, because
Right on.
I knew them when Eidolon started. I started writing to them
Yeah,
when the first album came out, and we
yeah,
exchanged
yeah.
phone numbers, and we used to call each other. And like, Eidolon mentioned me on like further albums, like the second album onwards, and we became good friends. I've only met Sean briefly once, but I've never met Glenn.
Those guys are really talented, man. Like that Eidolon stuff to me, I know exactly how Glenn feels about it because I've talked many times about Eidolon with Glenn. I know he's not a huge fan of some of the vocals on the earlier records, but I guess that's as a songwriter, maybe he doesn't hear what the potential in his head it could have been. But me as a fan, I don't get it. I think it's amazing. I think their whole catalog, that Eidolon stuff, is just incredible. That's some of the best stuff to ever come out of Canada, the hands
Um,
down. Yeah. So the first record, like there's songs on there, like the second track on the album, "Justify the Unjust."
yeah, that's
Like I
right.
wrote that song when I was like 16 or 17. You know what I mean? So those tracks were so old and so dated and had been with me for so long that when I just decided one day to record those tracks, it was going to be more of a one-off, kind of just like a shits and giggles solo project for fun, just something I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
And my buddy Justin, he was in a band called Alpha Kill, Justin Steer in Winnipeg, and he's a very accomplished musician himself. He's a really good guitar player, and I asked him to play the bass for that record, and he agreed, did the vocals, and it actually got picked up by a label out of Greece called Alone Records. I don't even know if they're still functional. It was 10 years ago, but they did a vinyl distribution of that album for us, and it sold out. You know, like they only did like 300 copies or something, but it sold out. So I thought, well, that's cool. You know, never expected anything other than maybe a couple friends would buy a CD off me or something, right? Like I didn't expect much out of it. The reason I pursued the vinyl thing was because I would have loved to have a vinyl copy of the album for myself, right?
Yeah.
So I got a label to print it, distribute it, and they sent me a package in lieu of payment. They gave me like a box. I think they sent me 50 LPs or something. But anyway, the point is, it kind of grew legs, right? So all of a sudden, there's like this really small cult following for Wreck-Defy, and it was really cool. And one thing led to another. I started writing songs right away after that record came out, and all but two songs on the Remnants of Pain record was uh, was new material. There was two songs that were left over that were again written when I was a kid, and then the rest of the material on there was newer, and that's why it had more of a modern sound to it, and the band kind of had more of an evolution towards the modernized sound, the more of a down-tuned approach. I'm sure you picked up on that if you listened to them in
Yeah.
sequence.
So the name Rectify, what other names did you have, Matt, besides that? And what does it mean to you?
Well, Rectify,
Right.
rectify. Yeah,
Right.
that's all it is. Rectify. It's just,
Okay.
it's just, it's the way it's enunciated. The hyphen is an homage to the band Violence.
Yeah, I
They
know
spell
those
it
guys.
VIO hyphen.
Yeah.
And yeah, but the word doesn't require a hyphen, right? They do that on their own. So that was the incorporated homage, if you will. And instead of a hyphen, I used a 9 millimeter round, just with my lineage to the military and all that stuff. So, and
Okay.
it's got teeth, right? It gives it a little bit of teeth.
So I was going to say to you, how well did the Remnants of Pain sell for you for a second album? Because a lot of the first few albums that you released were all independent. You didn't really have a record label, did you, until later on?
No, actually, every record came out on a label except for Hybridized.
All right. Okay.
Hybridized was a Yeah, Hybridized. I released it on I have my own label that I use for my Gutter Creek band. But anyways, yeah. So like Remnants of Pain came. We signed a deal with a Finnish label called Inverse Records out of
Don't know them.
Finland.
Don't know them.
Yeah, they did. I don't know. They did CDs, and then we signed a vinyl deal with a label called Floga Records out of Spain. for Remnants as well.
Yeah.
And uh, and then Powers That Be, the third record, we signed with Punishment 18 out of Italy, as well as a vinyl deal with Doc Gator Records out of Switzerland slash Germany. They have like a double office thing there. Up until now, like being with Massacre, that was our best selling record, was our third album. And now I think a lot of that had to do with the help of Punishment 18. You know,
Right.
they had really good distribution, and they actually always had their stuff was always available online too. Like it was never dry. If you go on Amazon, you see our stuff's always, it says currently unavailable, currently unavailable. Well, that's up to the label, right, to get it back out into the shops, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, but yeah, they were good. And then Doc Gator Records released The World Enslaved. Yeah, that's right. And then we didn't do any more records with those guys. And then I ended up we signed with Massacre in 2023 actually. We signed
Okay.
like 3 years ago. Yeah. And what happened was the whole absorption thing, right? With the label. You know
Right.
what happened there? There was some restructuring, AFM,
Yeah, yeah, that's what.
Massacre.
Yeah, they've all come together. Like they went a bit cold for a
Yeah,
couple of years, and they re-emerged again as a stronger unit.
right. So, but in that time, I'd recorded two more albums. You know, I did a I did a concept record, uh, Rectify album called Rise of the Vigilante, which will probably come out after Dissecting the Leech, I hope, through Massacre. And then I did another album after that called Hybridized. In that time span, a couple of years had gone by, and I didn't know the fate of the label or what was going to happen. And I had all this material stockpiled, and people were getting sick around me. Like, my mother got cancer, my father got cancer. Everyone I knew was getting sick and stuff, and it just dawned on me that my mom was my biggest fan, right? So I and one of the tracks on that hybridized record, I was inspired to write about her. So, I wanted to
Which
get that out before she perished from cancer, right? So that was
which
the
song was
reason
it,
why
Matt?
that album
What
get
song? What song was it for your mother?
uh believe,
Right. So it's very
the
sentimental to
track
you and
believe.
very personal.
Yeah, that's well, yeah, and it was written for inspired by that
Yeah.
by a specific person. So, you want that person to hear that song, right, before they perish ultimately, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of like just took it upon myself to release that album. It might have been a disservice to the quality of the record because it's a really strong album. My Hybridize is a really great, I'm really proud of that record. I think it rivals Dissecting the Leech. Um, Now, having said that, Dissecting the Leech, I'm really happy with how that turned out too. But I'm just talking in sequence of records here, how they've come out for you. So
Right.
yeah, so that I released that hybridized through my own label, Knuckle Duster Records, and I just pushed it out on CD. I did 500 pressings of CDs. Uh, Pretty much sold them all. I'm not going to do any more, and didn't do any vinyl. So I'm sure it will get reissued, if not through Massacre, through another label, I'm sure. Probably Massacre, I would suspect. But um, in the intern, now we're on to Dissecting the Leech. Seems to be doing well. Hey, the reviews seem to be pretty. I'm really flattered by a lot of the reviews, man. People seem to really be digging the record, and that's great. So um, I'm just glad people are getting to hear it because that thing was actually, Jay, we had that mixed. I think it was shit, man. It was like April or May of 2022 when that album was finally mixed and mastered. So that music to me is so old now. Like the where I'm at as the composer, I write the music for the band, right? So it's just so old now. It seems like some of it's so primitive because, there's been I'm working on the third record follow up of that currently of the Dissecting the Leech album, and I've done two albums for Gutter Creek since that Dissecting the Leech was finished. So that's six albums I've constructed since then. So your sort of framework where you are as a writer kind of evolves, right? You
Yeah.
know, I'm not minimizing the quality of the music or anything. I'm just saying like it just seems so old to me now, so dated.
I mean, the album title, Dissecting the Leech, how did you come up with the title and what other names did you have for this album?
Yeah, no, that was just the title I had for it. In fact, I had that title before I had the lyrics for it. I kind of dug I was referring to pedophiles as leeches, and the government. I was with all what was happening in Canada at the time. There was a lot of political stuff happening, and I just had my opinions of it, and I don't want to go scream and protest, but I'll express myself through music if I can sometimes, right? So, um, it was just essentially calling out anyone who had a fantasy or a desire about hurting children. That's essentially what the leeches were. And dissecting the leech is just plain and simple is brutally dissecting leeches. Now, there's three things to me that are just not, they're off limits, right? Children, see, elderly people, and animals, pets and animals. Anything that's defenseless, leave it
Yeah.
alone,
Yeah.
And if you cross that line, it's hard sometimes to find empathy for any rationale as to why they would have done what they've done. So the dissecting the leech, it's pretty brutal, but it's supposed to be, and it's an unapologetic track for obvious reasons. There's no more vulnerable class of people than children, man. They
Yeah.
depend on people, the adults, to be their providers and protectors, not their predators.
Very true. I mean, the lineup that you've got Greg Christian from formerly with Testament. Is he still with Trauma?
No, no, it's been a while, man.
Because
Greg hasn't been
I
with
know
Trauma.
Brian Allen was also in Trauma. I don't know if he's still with those guys, but
No, no, yeah, no.
how did you hook up with Greg then?
How I came to cross paths with Greg was when I was working with Juan on the Remnants record. I had Justin was originally going to do the bass lines again, obviously come back and do the bass tracks, but because I ended up going with Aaron as a singer, Aaron Randall, um, Justin didn't really want to partake as just the bass player. He wanted to do the vocals again. So, like, all right. So I mentioned that to Juan because I'd reached out to him to mix that, and I said I'm going to have to do either find a session player for this, or I'm gonna end up doing the bass tracks myself. And Juan suggested to me, he said, well, why don't you get Greg Christian to do it? And I'm like, well, can you make that happen? How am I going to make that happen, right? So he says, yeah, yeah, yeah. I talk to Greg all the time, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. So, and that's how that happened. And then through that, we just became friends, obviously. And I'd fly out to California and we'd hang out and stuff and at Juan's studio, what have you. And I've kind of moved on too with my, actually, Justin's back in Wreck-Defy, ironically. It's funny we're talking about this. So
Right.
the original bass player, yeah, the new album I'm working on right now, Justin's doing the bass lines currently. I think he's got 2 or 3 songs left, and that'll be it. And Wags just finished all the vocals for the newest record. So
But I mean,
all
the
good,
singer. I
man.
mean, Greg, your singer. What a singer! It sounds like James Riviera meets Norm Skinner from Forbidden.
Greg's one of the best. He's one of the best singers that nobody knows of. So his best work, I'm I'm not saying this um, in any slight way or to be cheeky. His best work is not with Rectify. Greg's best work is in a band called Archetype. He did one record with a band called Archetype. The year was 2002, and the album is called Dawning. And I'm telling you, man, it's like Dream Theater without the keyboards, more metal,
Do you know
but
what,
very
Matt? Do you know
progressive.
what, Matt? I've got the CD. It's got a red cover. Is that right?
Well, that's Wags. That's him, man.
I'll have to dig it out.
That's Wags.
I'll have to dig it out. I've had it
So
years.
yeah, I've let a few people hear that, and they're like, "That's not your singer." I'm like, "Yeah, that's Wags." But I mean, he's 20 some years younger on that album, right? He's in his prime there, like he's in his mid 30s, right?
Right.
So like yeah. But then in 2007, he did a record with the band called Shatter Messiah. Never to Play the Servant is the title of the album. Came out on Dockyard Records, like the defunct label now, but that's Curran Murphy's band. Curran, who was in Nevermore, he toured with Annihilator for a short while.
Oh yeah, he's
I
in
don't know if
Venom
you know.
Inc. He's in now in Venom Inc.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
him. Yeah. Well, that was Curran's band, Shatter Messiah, and Wags sang on the actually sang on their first 2 records, but their debut album, Never to Play the Servant, that's one of the best thrash metal, heavy metal records you'll ever own. Like these are the records when I heard these albums, that's why I reached out to Wags, hoping he'd say yeah to sing for Rectify. Because like when Aaron left, man, there was no other guy. I didn't have a short list. I had one name. It just the stars aligned, and I was fortunate that Wags is the humble guy that he is, and he just wanted to hear a few tracks. I sent him a few tracks, and he said, "All right, let's go, let's do this." So the guy, he lives this life. He's a true metalhead, like
like me.
and it's always about like all of us, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt, what's your
Just
favorite songs from the new album then?
of our record.
Yeah.
Uh, I would say probably Revolt, track 4, I think.
Why?
Well, I like the Kurt Russell intro.
Did you have to pay for that? Or was it? Did you have to pay
No, actually,
royalties?
you know what the deal is on that? So if it's under 30 seconds, you don't have to pay.
Bit like YouTube.
Yeah, I guess. Is that what it is? 30
Yeah, I think
seconds?
so. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, but but what? Having said that, if the album ever did take off and sell a ton of records, then I'm sure they'd be coming for their cut, right?
So
Like
yeah.
everything else.
So what
Yeah.
about the rest of the album? Any other songs that you particularly like?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I honestly don't really listen to these records. Like I like Revolt is a good song. I think Apocalypse of Hope, the last track, is a really, really strong one too. I think the reason, like for me, as I listen to them for flaws. This is okay. I'll explain to you how I listen to these songs. When I'm writing a record, I live in the moment of it. Now, I don't have any leftover material anymore from when I was a kid. So when I approach an album now, I sit down and my intention is to write an album. I don't really write songs and save them. I just write an album. I focus on when it's time to write a record, and I'll do that. And when I feel it's ready to complete it, then I'll go in and start tracking it. But I live in the moment of the album. It's like it seems like you're the way you play, the nuances within, the way everything's being approached, kind of like fits that era for some reason to me. Like this, I'm talking to myself here. I can't speak for others, but and then after that, once the album's mixed and mastered and so forth, um, I listen to the album, sure, and then I'm kind of done with it. It's done. Like I don't know how many authors read their own books. I don't know if they do, but I don't think I would read my own book. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Does that make Yeah. So
Because you get sick
I
of
don't.
hearing it. You get sick of hearing it. So it's like I'm done.
It's not even that. It's just I like listening to other people's music. Like I like like I listen to Skinner or Megadeth or I love music. So I don't necessarily want to listen to my music. That's just what I do.
Yeah.
I don't know. So when my favorite tracks, I don't really, yeah, like Revolt. I appreciate that song because I think it's a really well written song. And back to what I was saying to you is like when I do listen to these albums, I listen to what stands out to me is not what's great. What stands out to me is like I shouldn't have done that, or I should have wrote that differently, or I should have played that part differently. That's what stands out to me, more so than that was a good part, man. I like, I don't really get the gratification out of it like that. I don't know. I write, I enjoy doing it. It's cathartic. A lot of the lyrics are personal to me. Uh, the Haunting Past is totally about my time overseas and stuff. Um, there's a Under the Sun too. There's a lot of parallels there. Do It Again is about a personal relationship. The Path is about someone that died in my life. So I mean, a lot of that stuff is cathartic. So and that's why a lot of the time, sometimes when you're writing based, human emotion, that's what drives the lyrical concepts for me anyway. I'm not On occasion you'll write a song about a werewolf or something, and fantasy based, but for the most part, 90% of the stuff that I'm doing.
So yeah, Matt, we are talking about the new album, your favorite songs. Just how long did it take to record this album?
Not long. Uh, Probably a couple weeks. The logistical parts are always the most difficult, trying to get guest guys to play on it because you're at the mercy of their schedules. So sometimes guys are on the road or they're recording with their primary bands or what have you. Actually, you know what? When they're tracking with their own band, it's actually convenient because a lot of times they have session time booked or something. So they could just throw down a solo or something while they're in the middle of doing that, you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just a matter of waiting for them to come with their parts. But on my end, as like writing the basically the blueprints for the songs is like, a week or two, they're usually done.
Right. I mean, you've got some brilliant guests on. You've got the original guitarist from Megadeth, Chris Poland. And what's your connection with
Yeah.
Chris?
Well, today Chris and I are friends. Back then, I was a fanboy. So how that worked out was so again, you got to go. Like I was telling you, that album was finished in May of 2022.
Yeah.
So I that album was tracked late, I think late 20, probably maybe it was January or something like 2022. But it was in that time frame, like not long before it was mixed. It was being tracked and everything. But anyway, I remember when I started assembling people on a piece of like paper that I wanted to like potentially ask to be part of the album as guest performers, I had been communicating with Dave Clemens, David Judson Clemens, who was the original singer from the band Damn the Machine
Oh
that
yeah, I
Chris
saw
was in.
them.
And
I saw them with Dream Theater back in on the Images and Words tour. They were a good band.
awesome,
Damn the
yeah,
Machine. Strange, but
amazing,
very good.
incredible. Yeah, their first album I think is one of the best debuts by any band. I think it's virtually unmatched, I think, for its originality. It doesn't really sound like anyone. They got their own style. But anyway, yeah. So I've been in communication with Dave for a long time. He supports Rectify, and I'm a huge fan of his solo material. So, given his affiliation with Chris, when it came time to pick guys, I actually just reached out to Dave and said, "Hey, man, do you know how to get a hold of Chris Poland?" And so he put me in touch with Chris Poland's management at the time, guy by the name of Steve Bauer, and really nice guy. And I told him what I was up to, and he said, "Well," he goes, "you'll have to send the material, and Chris will have to listen to it, and blah blah blah." And I said, "All right, whatever." So it was this little process, but Chris Chris agreed to do it, and he did two tracks. He did a solo on Revolt, and he did a solo on Millennial Dystopia. He did both tracks. So when it came time to do the record after Dissecting the Leech, so when I started doing that record, I had a more ambitious request. I reached out to Chris this time, a little more confidence, because we're friends. So I said, "Hey, man," I said, "would you mind splitting solos on this whole album with me, like you did with Dave on the Peace Sells and the Killing Is My Business record?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, sure. Send me the songs." And it was that simple. That's what kind of guy Chris is, how humble of a person he is. But at least that's how he was with me. He was really, really awesome. And I'll forever be grateful. I mean, because one of the reasons I play guitar today is because of him.
Yeah.
So, it's to have him partake on an album was one thing. To become friends with the guy and then have him do it because he wants to is like another thing. It's really made it special for me too to have him be a part of it. And that worked out so well that if you listen to the Hybridize record that came out last year, well, that's Chris and myself all over the whole record on that one too. He split all the solos with me on that album as well.
Wow.
So I think there's about 34 or 35 lead breaks on the album, and I think 18 or 19 of those are Chris, and the rest are myself. So that's it. Kind of worked into this really awesome working relationship that was a lot of fun. And you know what, man? Um, he's such a better guitar player than I am, and in his tonal quality is just something of another universe. The ambient tonal quality that he brings to a Rectify record couldn't be captured by any other guitar player.
Well done. I mean, you've also got a good friend of mine on playing guest guitar solo, Steve Smythe.
Steve, wow,
Yeah,
Steve's
it's a
amazing, man.
long-time friend of mine from back in the day when he was in Nevermore and Forbidden and
Sure.
fucking One Machine, his own band.
Well, I've been talking to Steve for about 15 years too. Like I've just through music circles and stuff like that. But I was a fan of his S&S project, his instrumental thing that he did. I don't know if you're familiar with
No,
that.
well, when you've got Stu Block from Into Eternity, another Canadian band before he joined Iced Earth. Flotsam and Jetsam, Michael
Michael
Gilbert.
Gilbert. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So hey, so Mike Gilbert. So so I just told you Chris and I did those last two records together.
Yeah.
Rise of the Vigilante and Hybridized. We split all the solos, and then he was on a couple songs on Dissecting the Leech. So not to do a rehashing of over and over. Um, great opportunity to get to do a couple records with Chris. Forever grateful. The new one that we're doing right now, the working title of the album is Unleashing the Beast. Um, Mike Gilbert wants to do all the solos with me on this one. So
All right.
from Flotsam. Yeah. So you just mentioned his name. It's just I'm throwing that out there. So yeah, Mike's awesome. He's a super easygoing guy too. And you know what? Flotsam and Jetsam, we talked about my favorite each other's favorite band being Overkill, and it is. But you know what? I gotta say, for me, Flotsam and Jetsam is right on their heels, man, because that's another band that it just pretty much do what they want musically, and it still works.
So when you've got other
Yeah.
artists on here that I'm not quite familiar with, is it Nicole? Is it Nicole?
Oh, Nikolai Antanisov from Agents of
Yeah,
Steel. Nick.
we've got on there. We've got Derek. Who's Derek with? Drums.
Derek. What's his last name?
Is it Crawl? Krill? Crawl?
Oh, Derek Kroll. Well,
Yeah.
Derek Kroll was the Gutter Creek. He's the drummer from Gutter Creek.
Oh, right. Okay.
One of the, yeah, yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah. And
getting
then
all these.
we had Amanda Kiernan, the singer Amanda from Into Eternity. She sang in Into Eternity when Stu Block left.
Yeah.
Uh, and uh, and Genevieve Rota from the band Temptress.
So, is this album getting good reviews? What album reviews have you been getting so far? Has anybody said anything negative?
Uh, as far as I know, the reviews have been pretty positive. Yeah, you know who follows the reviews hard is Wags. Wags is always sending me the reviews. He's always forwarding them to me. Check this out. I if someone writes the review and sends it to me directly, of course I read the review. I mean, it's but I don't seek them out. It's if they pop up on our feed, I share them absolutely. But all the reviews so far have been very, I think, fair anyway. The assessments.
So, the new album that you said you're working on, how is this going to differ from the album that you've just released?
Well, for one thing, my songwriting's way better now. Like I said, that record that just came out on March 6th. I've written 6 records since that record. So with every album you write, at least for me, I think you kind of learn. And I explained to you when I listen to one of something I've recorded, it's kind of to pick it apart and not to demean yourself, but to just learn from your past mistakes, if you will, and learn like, well, I should have done this, so next time I'm going to try this or omit that. And anyways, the more songs you write, the more you learn on how to write a song. That's kind of how I kind of view it and make a real simple term. Um, and so yeah, 6 albums had gone by since that record. So I know that the album I'm working on now has so much more experience in songwriting going into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've learned more. I've just learned more about harmonies and melodies and time changes and signature changes and so forth. And still allow, like I talked to you, explain to you how we tried to make this album really almost stupid technical in some parts and still try to hold on to the melodic aspects and stuff to see how far you could push that. So that was the goal, and it kind of works. It's fun. Some of the riffs are so complicated. Like you'd have to like really rehearse for a while to play them live and stuff, and that's fine. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's some really technical prog music that would make this look really pale in comparison. You know what I'm saying? So but from the standards that I can play at, like the level that I am as a musician, that's as far as I could go with it. It was
Yeah.
basically the extent of my ability as a player. Hopefully I can get over a plateau and supersede that level one day. But right now, that's where I'm stuck at. Where we're at right now, the writing is as complex as I can play and still make it some semblance of a song.
So, Matt, I want to thank you for doing this interview. Do you have anything to say to the people watching this on YouTube?
You know what? I appreciate the review you gave us earlier, man, and the link you sent me. I thank you for your kind words,
You're
and
welcome. Great
I want
album.
to I
Great
want to
album.
thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I've watched some of your videos from your past guests, and I'm a big fan of the people that you bring on. So I'm the biggest music nerd there is, man. So just to be part of your show, I'm honored, and I thank you for having me on. And for all the fans that bought the record and send messages to me and stuff, thank you for the support, and I enjoy doing this. And there's more records to come.